Want to wish everyone, especially those following us from Israel, to be safe. This is the fifth day of the war. Today, to address us and speak to us, we're blessed to have Gadi Ezra. Many of you, friends of the IDF, know Gadi over the years, who's played a major role engaging us, educating us, and mentoring us. Gadi, as you know, was the head of the public diplomacy office of the prime minister. He had a very, very esteemed position. Gadi himself is a member of Special Forces. Right now, he's in reserve, goes back and forth with Special Forces. But professionally, Gadi's an attorney. And Gadi, in the middle of this war, for you to take time out to address us, we're incredibly grateful to you. And I don't want to waste anyone's time. We want to hand it immediately right over to you.
Thank you, Steve. You know, when family calls, you show up. So thank you for giving me the stage. It's always an honor to be part of the FIDF community. And I want to begin in an unconventional way. And I always say that in my talks to FIDF chapters. I want to thanking you for caring, for showing up, for embodying the understanding that we are all part of the same Zionist project, and we're all holding this stretcher from a different angle. I might be on reserve duty right now. I just returned from a TV panel, but my backpack of reserve duty is right there behind me. I'll be going tomorrow. I don't know. I'm waiting for my unit to call us again. But you are giving your fair share by caring, by engaging, by being part of our war. So toda from the bottom of my heart. I have about 10 to 15 minutes, so I'm not going to go over every single aspect of this preemptive self-defense strike. I will touch upon, Steve, with your permission, on three major points that I find pivotal and important as we enter the fifth day, depending on which side on the globe you are, entering or in the midst of the fifth day to this war, which is part of another war with Hamas. We're still trying to figure out the terminology about that. The first aspect I would like to touch upon, Steve, is the Israeli modus operandi. Our achievements are really still being processed. The military moves are ongoing, the planning, the pilots, the Mossad conduct, and also the quality of intel. All of those will be learned in military academies worldwide. But one thing can be said with relative certainty already. This attack, again, this preemptive self-defense attack, and this terminology is crucially important, was preceded by a series of events that were not entirely coincidental in my view. Take, for example, Netanyahu's announcement of his departure for a vacation. Personal constraints in his private life, such as his son's upcoming wedding, or even political trends, such as Witkoff's future arrival in the region, then it was future, now it's present or perhaps past, or even quotes by Israeli sources that condition a strike only on the failure of American negotiations with Iran. What I'm trying to say is that all of these conveyed that the H hour has not yet to come, that it may be close but not necessarily immediate. And of course, it is reasonable to assume that some of these circumstances are genuine and authentic and stem, from sincere youth love, right? But some are probably not. And the combination, the sequence of all these elements together is what created, in my view, the most significant deception operation in Israel's history. Or if you'd like, an anesthetic for the Ayatollah regime that went to sleep like a loud tiger and woke up like a peeling paper. Another thing that is important to emphasize concerning our modus operandi concerns the adherence to international humanitarian law. Again, we all talk about the fact that the Iranians are attacking Israeli civilian compounds, but we are only attacking major military or political facilities. And by that, of course, we are adhering to international law. We are adhering to the principle of necessity, primarily to the principle of distinction, in which civilians are immune from any attack unless they are directly participating in the hostilities, right? And I've talked about this in multiple FIDF conversations and talks. The major challenge here would not be the adherence to international law, but rather some of the public diplomacy challenges that these strikes create. For example, sometimes it's not just the targets, but the quality or the type of the targets. Take, for example, the targeting of the Iranian TV station last night, right? Journalistic compounds and TV stations has a special status in our Western world, right? They are protected because they symbolize liberalism and democratic rights. We saw that also in Operation Guardians of the Wall with the target on the AP building in Gaza, if you remember. And you can also go back to the late 90s when NATO forces bombarded the TV station in Belgrade, right? All of these acts were granted with a lot of criticism, not because the target itself was important or not important from a military point of view, but because it was important from a democratic point of view. So the Israeli challenge here would not be just to explain in a speech of the IDF spokesman unit, which are doing phenomenal work, if you ask me. Their challenge would not be just to explain the factual circumstances, but also the justification on that. The second thing I would like to talk about, Steve, is the Iranian people themselves. You know, the Israeli conduct has a substantial impact on the personal security perception, and this is a key word, of every single Iranian these days. Our Air Force is operating in the country's skies as if they, wear across the street. Symbols of power and senior officials are targeted in their homes as if they lived right outside of Tel Aviv or in Bet Shemesh. Hundreds of targets are destroyed and an entire layer of military leadership was wiped out. The direct consequence here is that the feeling of infiltration among Tehran's residents is shocking. The loss of sovereignty that many of them are experiencing has not been felt since the late 1970s, since 1979, the Islamic Revolution. And what intensified this sentiment is the fact that the Iranian people are very similar to us, Jews. They cherish life in principle. This is also why the regime has promoted its destructive aspiration by proxies who were supposed to serve as a choke ring on Israel, but also to take the hit for them in a case that, hell breaks loose. Now, this represents an opportunity, if you really think about it, for both Israel and the Iranian people, because their genuine emotions must be channeled into constructive direction that will lead inevitably to the downfall of the Ayatollah regime. Needless to say, this is not an easy task, but what we have to understand is that the Ayatollah regime, and this is a bombastic statement that I'm about to lay here, but I support it. The Ayatollah regime is the greatest enemy to the Jewish people since the Third Reich. Therefore, preventing nuclear capabilities would not eliminate the danger in the long run, as it is the symptom, not the core of the problem. And this is why Israel must use its resources in every informational platform possible to reach out to the Iranian people and remind them, in their language, by the way, that the attack is not against them, but against their leadership, and that if they only want to, freedom is within their reach. Israel is starting to do that, and they're doing the IDF spokesman unit. We also saw statements by the Minister of Defense, also by Prime Minister Netanyahu. This is a good direction, and we need to stress that direction and move forward. The next thing I want to touch upon, very briefly, is the geopolitical context. And what's important for me to convey in this part is that we are part of a global clash. It's not just Israel and Iran. On the one side, we have Russia and China, and on the other, we have the West, led by the United States of America. All the three of them, by the way, are permanent members of the UN Security Council, which also explain the constant deadlock the Council suffers from. Iran, North Korea, in this regard, are proxies of one side, while we are affiliated with the other side. Now, for many, many years, we have been fighting with a proxy of a proxy, if you really think about it, right? Hamas, Hezbollah, and now for the first time, we're clashing with Iran directly. And what's important to understand here is that each action that we Israelis take will inevitably have a broader impact. Take the oil fields, for example, right? This is just one example. They are 90%. 90% of Iranian oil is sold in comfortable prices to China. 10% of Chinese oil is imported from Iran. This is why also Trump's wars and deeds should be analyzed not only through the prism of Israel, but also from this geopolitical broader lens. And the last thing I want to touch upon is the Israeli circumstances. This preemptive self-defense strike has been taken with substantial political, and I'm not going into political analysis, obviously, this is an apolitical discussion, but we need to understand what's happening in the background, right? On top of them, there is a drafting law which may exempt tens of thousands of our Haredi brothers from service. I'm not expressing my support or objecting to this law. I'm just laying the factual ground here because this has significant importance to our ability to continue the war. This is not just a matter of ethos. You need to understand this is a matter of manpower as well. So even if you'd like to leave aside the issue of the country's DNA and where we're going as a nation, even if you want to look only from a technical term, what we are seeing in the few, 3, 4 nights, and I've lost counting, you need to understand that this is not the end. The Iranian could strike back. Their ability to hurt us even more do exist, and our challenge as Israelis would be to maintain this campaign against Iran while exempting, if we choose, and that's the prerogative of the government, if we choose to exempt tens of thousands from service while our reservists need, more people under the stretcher. These circumstances, and one must understand, will inevitably impact our ability to continue the war without American physical support. We don't know if Trump is gonna, send troops or airplanes or other abilities. But as long as we're continuing this war without American physical rather than political support, these political circumstances will inevitably impact our ability to continue with the war. Hopefully, we're not going to get there, as Iranians will find themselves celebrating in the streets of Tehran sooner than later, inshallah.
Gadi, thank you. In terms of the situation amongst the population, is there a sense of determination? We've heard that this could go on for weeks. Look, Iran spent 40 years building up this kind of military infrastructure. You can't get rid of that in 4 days, in 14 days. You can't get rid of that. It takes time. It takes with the best of intelligence. Talk to us about the psyche, the mentality of the population on the home front.
Right. So it's an interesting question, Steve, because for me, it's one of the first times in my life that I'm experiencing war from the home front. I'm usually getting called up, and this is an operation that's being led right now, not with infantry on forces on the ground, but mainly with the Air Force. So for me, it's very weird. I can tell you that from my impression, not just former director of national public diplomacy, but as an Israeli, as a Jew, the resiliency of the Israeli people is astonishing. It's absolutely amazing. And this is primarily not because we like wars, but because we understand the logic behind what is going on. And we understand that if we're not going to engage in this war, bad things might happen. We have tried, Steve, to postpone this H-hour time and again, and we have come to a situation in which there is no other choice. Therefore, we are currently in a no-choice war. We're fighting for our lives. This is not a privilege to have. It's not a matter of a choice, really, to have this war going on. But let me tell you something else. We also remember our eyes are on the ball in this sense that the most important thing is still the hostages. It is still the hostages, despite of what's going on in Iran. Of course, we are fully supportive of this campaign, but our eyes are on the ball in the sense that our ability to restore our sovereignty as a nation would not be able to begin without the remaining hostages back home. So with that, we are fully supportive of what's going on. There is not a poll that has been conducted, obviously, but I can tell you as someone who's speaking to all layers of society that I'm seeing an astonishing consensus about the need. It's not pleasant to go to the shelter in the middle of the night, but we understand the logic behind this, and we have it. We have a why. This is what and we have a good reason, and this is why we are able to allow the security forces to operate as long as they need to achieve those goals.
Thank you. Incredible resilience amongst the population, incredible determination amongst the population, despite the emotional toll, despite the terror toll that it has. You know, we had a conversation yesterday with Ari Sasher, and he did a little research after the conversation. The primary goal of Iran in sending most of these missiles at night is just to terrorize the population, to catch them when they're tired, when they're broken, when they haven't had enough sleep, when it's dark, etc. One just comment before we go forward. Just today alone, we received a request from the IDF, a significant request, another $3 million. One of the areas for those who are participating and watching this, that we have an emergency campaign. Most of the equipment that we are funding goes to the Home Front Command. Again, the Home Front Command are those who wear the orange beret. They're known as Pikud Oref, Kumta. The beret is an orange beret. They have a special brigade, which all of you are familiar with because of Haiti. You've seen them in Asia. You've seen them in Surfside. You've seen them in other parts of the world, in Turkey. They're known as Khilutz V'Hatzalah, search and rescue. And the search and rescue team are the ones that go into these buildings that are pummeled. They're the ones that are trying to save lives where minutes count, where seconds count. The Home Front Command, in the case of the scenario that we've had over the last 5 nights, you're looking at them running the country, managing affairs when you've got infrastructure being destroyed, when you've got roads being hit, when you have the lack of access to hospitals, all of the above. And the needs that they have are very, very significant. So in this emergency campaign, that is one major component that we've got to probably about already. We've had requests for $4 to $5 million in equipment. The other component of that is that tens of thousands of reservists have been called up. We're speaking with Gadi Ezra. He has left his family, left his job multiple times during this war. Well, on Thursday, there was a call up of thousands and thousands of reservists. The Army is giving them same benefits in terms of food relief, in terms of those who come from families either in poverty or what's known as the gray zone, Tchuma 4. And this is, again, millions of dollars that we have taken the commitment upon so that these reservists at least have the means, the financial means to support a family, to pay the bills, to pay for the utilities, to pay the rent, etc., the mortgage. Please, FIDF.org, FIDF.org. If someone wants to speak about a major gift, a specific area, steve.weil@fidf.org, steve.weil@fidf.org. Gadi, I apologize for that interruption, but
I want to thank you. You're apologizing, and I want to thank you. Steve, if I may add to what you just said, the people of the Home Front Command of Pikud Oref are not just saving lives. They represent everything beautiful about Israel and Judaism. For many, many years, they were the symbol of Israeli adherence to Tikkun Olam. They were the ones that were sent to tragic sites all over the world, in Haiti and Turkey, etc. And now they embody this notion here at home. And the second thing I want to tell you is that, and I'm speaking now as a reservist, your support for us has, of course, the significance layer of the physical aspect of it, of providing the needs, being there. But I got to tell you, seeing your logo so many times throughout the war in military bases, in the Migunit, in Nahal Oz. I think I texted one of the FIDF employees. I happened to be in the Migunit in Nahal Oz from where the female soldiers were kidnapped. The first thing I saw when I went in was candles of FIDF. And for me, that was another sign you're not alone. We are with you. And I cannot even explain to you, Steve, how much air that placed in my lungs. So it's not, it's, the monetary aspect is crucial. It's important. I'm not underestimating it. But you're doing something much, much greater than that by engaging with FIDF. And I'm not an FIDF employee. Nobody asked me to say this, right? We haven't coordinated this, Steve, right? But the emotional aspect, the neshama aspect, it's so important. And you are doing this big time. So todah for this.
Thank you. On behalf, look, on behalf of American Jews and American Christians, who understand that right now Israel is not defending Israel. Israel's defending Sunni Islam. Israel's defending Christianity. Israel's defending Western civilization. Because we know the ultimate goal, Israel's the canary in the coal mine. The Jews always the canary in the coal mine. The ultimate goal is Mecca, Medina, is the Saudi Arabian oil fields. And then the primary goal, let's call it the real goal, is Christianity and Western civilization, what they call the Great Satan. Look, Macron, the Spaniards, they may not appreciate what's being done by Israel, but human history, world history will appreciate that Israel saved the planet. And those are not pedantic words. I'm not being gregarious. Those are not exaggerative. Israel saved the planet from an empire that, equipped with ballistic and nuclear weapons, could wreak havoc on the world. And history will have to show gratitude for what Israel has done. Anyone with any sense of the facts of the data will appreciate that. And you know where you hear that? Loud, literally, from the megaphones? You hear that from the United States Armed Forces. That letter to President Trump from 70 generals yesterday, that America needs to support Israel, that this, from a point of view of the safety of humanity and the safety of the globe, is crucial and integral. I mean, that said it all. These are the people who know the facts.
I cannot agree more. Steve, you talked about the fact that history will judge and history will thank us. I'm looking at my future grandkids. My son is 3 years young, but I want my grandkids to have a place here. We are living a miracle, really. Our people have dreamed of a home for the Jewish people for 2,000 years. And we are so lucky to go through this miracle of 70 plus years that the state of Israel, the third house, exists. There's not going to be another chance. I'm not sure we're going to have the chance for a fourth home, fourth house. And therefore, we must do anything in our power to preserve not just our present, but the future of our grandkids and the future of our people.
Gadi, would you want to share some concluding remarks? Yesterday, when we had Ari Sasher, I said some last words or last thoughts. He says, please, with missiles over our head, trying to destroy us, don't use the term last words or last thoughts. So we're going to ask you for some concluding remarks.
First of all, I was supposed to be in New York for FIDF tonight to moderate the discussion with 2 former hostages, but obviously I'm here, so I feel bad for that, but we can fix that once the sky are open. But really what I want to convey, Steve, for everyone watching, is that, look, on October 7th, Hamas terrorists and other terrorist groups haven't just attacked Israel, they have attacked the soul, the neshama of every living Jew on the planet. This is why many of our brothers and sisters, and God, I hate the word diaspora, but outside of Israel, felt that they need to be part of this as well, because the assault was on them as well. I salute each and every one of you for being such an integral part of this war, of this fight, which hasn't started on October 7th and not going to end after Hamas is destroyed. We are part of a larger chain of Jewish people, and we're fighting for the good cause. And by the work you guys are doing through FIDF, you embody this spirit, this notion, this understanding that we are part of a greater thing. So really, thank you so much for everything that you do. It is my privilege and an honor to address this audience and be part of this larger community.
Gadi, please stay safe.
תודה.